The following audiobook is a fan unofficial reading. Danganronpa, Danganronpa 0, and all other trademarks are owned by Katsukataka Kodaka, Sakaisha, Spike Chunsoft, and Abstraction. Please support the official release.
Danganronpa 0. Written by Kazutaka Kodaka. Read by Frank and Resident Babe. Chapter 17.
Yasuke-kun?
What is it?
Hey, Yasuke-kun?
I said, what is it?
Why are you angry?
Are you for real? Because I spent my entire day trying to find a criminal. You should have said it was you who destroyed it all along. Why'd you lie about it?
I didn't really lie about anything. I just didn't mention it.
It's the same thing! Why'd you do such a thing?
It's because you never leave your house anymore, Yasuke-kun.
Huh?
I thought maybe if I made a sandcastle, you'd come look. There's no sense in making them if you don't look at them.
It's none of your business.
Yasuke-kun, why are you hiding?
Shut up.
Don't you like people seeing you cry?
I'll hit you!
You can't hit a girl, Yasuke-kun.
You're just another dim-witted girl with no personality.
I won't cry, okay?
I'm not trying to make you cry.
I won't cry, because the person who really wants to cry is Yasuke-kun.
What are you saying? I don't cry.
Why do you keep pretending to be strong?
I'm not trying to be strong.
You don't have to pretend to be strong in front of me. I don't care if I'm a dim-witted girl with no personality. Anyway, if I saw you crying, I bet I'd like you more.
That's kinda gross.
It's fine if it's gross. Besides, I've decided something. Even if you hide, I'll always be by your side. You can't escape me.
You sound like a stalker.
I'm not a stalker. I'm your lover.
Since when were you my lover? Is that something you decided by yourself?
Hey, since we're lovers, I'll be with you when you're sad.
I'm not really sad.
There you go, pretending to be strong again.
I'm not pretending to be strong. I'm just not sad.
Yasuke-kun.
In the end, she didn't even remember who I am. She just figured I was some kid she didn't care about. I couldn't even call her mom anymore in case she gets scared. I had to pretend to be someone else's kid. I'm not gonna cry for her sake. Now she's dead, I've got a load off my shoulders. I don't have to be an actor in a play anymore.
But it was because of the disease.
I said it was unavoidable, didn't I? I'm sick of hearing it. The doctor was always saying that. The doctor didn't do anything. If he were really a doctor, he would have cured my mum's disease.
He sounds like a phony.
If I were a doctor, I would have cured the disease easily.
Are you going to cry?
I said I don't cry.
Don't worry. I'll never forget about you, Yasuke-kun.
What? That's a weird thing to say suddenly.
It's not weird. I really mean it. Even if I forget everything else in this world, I'll absolutely remember you.
If you do forget, what will you do?
Then you'll cure me, Yasuke-kun. If you become a doctor, you'll be able to cure any disease I have, won't you?
Well, yeah, I guess.
And if you forget, I'll remember you. But if I don't remember, we'll still be together forever. We'd spend our whole lives looking after each other.
I knew it. You really are a stalker, aren't you?
Anyway, we'll always be together. Hey, since we'll always be together, it's okay to do embarrassing things. It's okay to cry. You can cry forever.
You really are weird.
So you have given up.
You won't laugh at me?
I won't laugh at you.
You won't try to comfort me?
I won't try to comfort you.
You won't tell anyone?
I don't have any friends to tell it to.
I don't have any friends either. Or any family. For the first time in his life, Matsuda Yasuke cried in public. Chapter 18. Hope's Peak Academy's East District, The faculty building. In the unpopular 4 floors corridor, only 2 sets of footsteps could be heard. One set belonged to the school physician. The other belonged to ultimate neurologist Yasuke Matsuda. The physician, with dark shadows cast over his face, led Matsuda. A depressing feeling floated in the atmosphere. Matsuda wore his usual dingy right shirt that fit him loosely. The hem of his shirt met his trousers, and he wore a jacket of the top. It clung to his shoulders stiffly as he walked, most likely because he never wore it. I really owe you one for this, said the physician walking ahead of him. Matsuda raised his head. He's nowhere near my specialty. I was extremely troubled on what to do, so I appreciate your cooperation with this. He had a relieved-sounding voice. Matsuda replied in an indifferent voice. Still, in the future you should talk to an expert about it. But if you can't do that, come to me. That's all there is to it, right? That's... The physician choked back his words. Matsuda couldn't see his face from his position, but he could easily imagine the man in front of him looked concerned. Did something happen? Matsuda took some deep breaths to calm himself. It's fine. I'm not going to use the excuse that I'm a student on you. No, instead I should be helping the experts more. I see. In any case, I owe you my thanks. The physician's face returned to normal. However, in turn, Matsuda had only become more tense and irritated. He reminded himself to suppress his emotions. Either way, there's no turning back. So I can protect her, I need to keep going on. No, instead, I need to keep falling down? The physician continued to lead him around the corridor corner. Matsuda followed him. The atmosphere immediately changed. This part of the corridor was eerily silent. He felt the temperature rapidly drop. On one side of the corridor, every window was covered up by thick curtains. The other side was lined with a number of doors. On each door there was a darkly tinted small window. This corridor was longer than the last. The faculty building was exactly as Matsuda had imagined it would look like since he first learnt of its existence. Usually all the rooms are vacant, the physician abruptly started to explain. He may have sensed Matsuda's question. So then, I suppose he means these rooms are only really used in an emergency. He followed the physician, looking around absent-mindedly. The physician who'd been walking ahead of him stopped suddenly. This is it! As he said that, he gestured to the door next to him. There wasn't anything unique about the door. In fact, it was a miracle the man was able to identify it. Apparently, all the equipment's already been delivered, but can you really go yourself? The principal asked for 2 people. It's fine, Matsuda replied flatly. No, but... The physician hesitated. Matsuda had rendered his argument useless. The principal and the steering committee have given me full access. In their absence, they've left it to me. Besides, it'd make no difference if 2 people went. Actually, it'd probably affect the subject in a bad way. So I ask of you to please leave the rest to me. The physician looked subdued. He quickly gave up and nodded, not bothering to argue any more. I see. Well, then I'll leave it to you. The physician turned away from Matsuda and walked around the corner into the depths of the corridor. After Matsuda watched the man walk away, he turned his gaze to the door in front of him. He slowly opened the door. Behind it was a dimly lit wide space. The first thing he noticed was the room was filled to the brim with various electronic devices. This place had more high-tech equipment than the school's humble school hospital or the research facility. Well, that's Hope's Peak Academy for you. That was the impression the room before him gave Matsuda. However, he felt tense as he stepped foot into the room. The fluorescent lights over him seemed to be unreliable in comparison to the ones used in the classrooms. The window on the back wall was also covered in a thick hanging curtain. The overall lighting of the room was quite dark. Due to that, the light emitted from the electronic devices stood out more. In the centre of the room was a bed, surrounded by the shining lights. Matsuda's line of sight drifted towards the figure on the bed. There was a man sleeping. He slowly walked to the side of the bed closest to him and looked down at the man. He had shallow facial features and a pure and honest face, as if he were a swordsman out of a movie based on feudal Japan. But something caught his eye more. There was a bandage wrapped several times over a painful-looking wound on his head. Matsuda knew who he was. The man's name was Murasame Soshin. In the top position at the student council, he was the ultimate student council president. He was also one of the survivors of the worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history. As if examining, Matsuda turned his gaze to the man. The man, lying on his back, had his eyes firmly open, although they saw nothing. They stared straight up at the ceiling, without moving, without blinking. "It's been a while," Matsuda tried calling out, but there was no response. He picked up the medical records next to the bed. He'd already been told what was written there beforehand, more or less. Murasame Soshin was involved in the worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history, during which he suffered serious head trauma. Fortunately, he escaped any life-threatening injuries. He was supposedly able to recover. However, for several days to even after several weeks, he was still not responsive at all. The reason as to why remains unknown. As Matsuda returned the medical record to the bedside table, he tried raising his voice again. "Do you know who I am? I am Yasuke Matsuda from your class. I'm the ultimate neurologist they were talking about. We've met several times before." As he expected, there was no response. Matsuda continued to prompt him. "So, why do you think I came here?" As he sat down, he looked at Murasame's face. He stared intently, searching for any hint of a reaction. "I was asked by the school headmaster and members of the steering committee. I said I wanted to help your recovery. Even though I said I wanted to hear about what happened, they wouldn't tell me anything. In fact, they did the opposite. In order to cover it up, it seems they want to hear the full story from you." Matsuda paused and emphasized the words that followed. "Well, that's supposedly their intentions." As always, Murasame didn't respond, but Matsuda continued anyway. "If you ask me, they don't like that you came back. That's why they sent me. So, even if I do everything I possibly can, you can't stay. I don't really care either way. Having you gone will probably work out for the best for them. But what if you don't disappear? And if you do come back, that'd really screw over their plans, wouldn't it? When that happens, I wonder what they'll do. Once they get the story out of you, they'd be under a lot of pressure." As Matsuda explained the circumstances, he picked up Murasame's right hand. After lifting it up, he soon released it. However, the man's hand showed no sign of strength, and dropped straight back onto the bed. "But I don't really know about that either. They're trying to hide and abandon the student council president. Because there's a criminal behind the incident, isn't there?" Matsuda leaned forward. Their faces were almost touching. He looked deeply into Murasame's unseeing eyes. "One false move, and this'll turn into Yaoi-rompa." That one's in the story, guys. I just had to break the narration to tell you that I didn't add that in. That's in the translation. I don't know if the translator added that in, but it's there, so I read it. "So what do you think? Do you know the culprit? You need to tell me. Why are they protecting them?" As always, there was no reply. Whether from his expression or from his eyes, there wasn't a hint of recognition. "It really is useless." Matsuda shook his head, looking frustrated. "Well, it's just that the examination was the failure," he muttered grumpily as he scratched his head. "Oh, that's right." He suddenly remembered something. He then asked in a tone feigning casualness, "By any chance, do you know anyone by the name of Junko Enoshima?" Murasame twitched slightly and his eyes moved. Matsuda's expression turned into a glare quickly. Murasame turned directly towards him. Seeing that, Matsuda's reaction was surprisingly calm. "I knew it." He couldn't help but feel discouraged. It would be better if he was still unconscious. But, not surprisingly, he wasn't. Though that was also to be expected. Matsuda had prepared for it a long time ago. He had no choice but to fall down from here, like a fate that he'd been doomed to since the very start. He was cursed to an unchangeable destiny. He knew he couldn't stop it, no matter what he did. The ground he was firmly walking on until now had collapsed. As he fell to the bottom of the abyss, he could taste it in his mouth. It was just a metaphor, but it was also quite real. Even as he fell, Matsuda knew exactly what was happening. Chapter 19.
The sun's dazzling light beat down on the pavement outside the dormitory so brightly I couldn't help but squint my eyes, though it wasn't strong enough to feel on my skin. In fact, I even shivered a little as the chilly wind ran past me. Despite all this, I felt relaxed and stress-free as I sat down on a nearby bench and let out a deep sigh. Ah, what a peaceful day. I wanted to shout my thoughts out to the wind. I tilted my head to the side suddenly. Huh? Wasn't there somewhere I needed to go? I took Otonashi Ryoko's memory notebook out of my backpack and opened it up so I could verify what it was I was supposed to do, but my hand suddenly stopped. By chance, the page I opened my notebook to was covered by a drawing of a man. My heart thumped a little faster. Matsuda-kun? I couldn't spot any differences between the picture and the real thing, but my heart was only beating a little faster. Perhaps it's not really all that similar after all. I guess if I change it a little, it'll look more like him. It wasn't that I couldn't remember Matsuda-kun's face. I just needed to use my heartbeat in the place of my memory. Maybe it's the eyes, or perhaps the mouth. I thought to myself as I drew. After some time, my heart was almost pounding like it would in front of the real thing. Yep, that's probably more similar. I patiently examined it as I gazed at it. Matsuda-kun. 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 I repeated his name in my mind. See? My heart's pounding. My heart beated harder as I brought the portrait closer to my face. As I drew more, it made the feeling stronger. I don't think I'm perverted or anything like that, but I didn't want to kiss it in just a non-sexual way. I suddenly tilted my head to the side. Wasn't there somewhere I needed to go? With that thought in mind, I bit farewell to Matsuda-kun's picture and began flipping through my notebook. After turning through the pages for a short while, I finally remembered. At the same time, I could feel my mood take a dramatic drop. I don't know why exactly, but my whole body started to tremble. I remembered that ridiculous murderer's confession. That's right, Inoshima Junko also told me her purposes that time. Kill your beloved darling, Matsuda Yasuke. She said, even if I don't remember, I'm still involved. I was still trembling. She couldn't be right. I should quickly warn Matsuda-kun of the crisis he's in. I need to go to the biology building in the East District. That's where Matsuda-kun's neurology research is. I have no time to lose. I jumped up from the bench and started to sprint with all my strength. Right now, it was either break time or lunch time, and the school was crowded with students outdoors. I pushed past people as I ran at full speed across the pavement. Of course, the people I pushed past would scream and cry things like, "Wah!" and "Kya!" But I didn't care. Anyway, I was running across the pavement, leaving my thoughts behind and sprinting as fast as I could. I left any unneeded, idle thoughts fly away with the wind. My bullet of love was shooting directly towards where Matsuda-kun was. I cut directly through the central plaza and arrived at the East District. I continued pushing past the other students and practically dived towards the biology building. My throat was dry and felt painful. In an instant, I was leaping up the stairs. My breath was erratic and heavy. I continued to push down my thoughts, like how much my throat hurt, or how much I'd like to take a rest out of my mind, and kept sprinting. As soon as I arrived at the lab, I didn't bother to knock on the door. Instead, I threw it open. Matsuda-kun! I screamed with my remaining strength. A short high school boy in the middle of the room straightened up in surprise and began trembling. His eyes were wide in surprise, and turned to me. He was completely rigid and frozen. Somehow, he doesn't look familiar at all. Come to think of it, my heart isn't racing or beating any harder than usual. Could it be you're not Matsuda-kun? That's not a clear answer. Which, do you mean? I ended up yelling louder than I should have, but it was because I was still panting.
I meant I'm not him by,
Then where's Matsuda-kun? I quickly looked around the lab. God damn it, there's no one else here.
He's out now, probably.
That's... If you'd look, you'd know. I roared back at him. I was at my wit's end. Arrgh! Come on! I felt my stamina rapidly disappear and fell to my knees. Of all the times he could disappear, where did he go? I continued ranting while I sat on my knees. The young man ran over to me.
It's fine. You shouldn't worry so much. I'm sure he'll be back soon.
He looked down at me. Why was he so worried about me? He looked at me with such concerned eyes. Or maybe they were the opposite of worried. Maybe they were... Actually, you're a little suspicious, I started.
Huh?
Or is your personality just like that? I mean, maybe you're the kind of person that stares at clearly distraught high school girls. Eek! Keep away! I fell onto my bum and tried to scoot away. The boy quickly looked away. Shocked, my skirt flipped up, and more of my thighs were exposed. Eek! I patted down my skirt.
I didn't do that. You seemed worried, so all I did was talk to you.
You liar! This is the first time we've met. I'm a complete stranger. It's weird to be concerned for someone you've never met before. I bet you just have some ulterior motive or secret intention or an evil plan or something.
Huh?
The atmosphere suddenly changed to a more serious tone.
A complete stranger?
He turned and looked straight at me, surprised. That reaction. So then. Huh? Have you met me before by any chance? As I said that, the boy only looked more surprised, but only for a moment. He quickly changed his expression to a more formal one.
My name is Makoto Naegi,
he said, suddenly introducing himself. It's a pleasure. As I replied, my line of sight dropped down to Otonashi Ryoko's memory notebook. Obviously, his name didn't sound familiar to me at all, but I checked for any sign of his name in my notebook. His name wasn't anywhere in there. So then, we haven't met before. I sent him a confused look. He returned a puzzled expression. His reactions were just becoming more and more suspicious. No matter what he says, this guy is definitely a pervert. I held my notebook in one hand, stood up, and questioned him further. So, why are you a student at this school?
Huh?
Huh? Don't have a reason? He really was suspicious after all. I stared at him, squinting my eyes.
No, there's a reason. It's just, I wouldn't call it special.
As his sentence fell apart, he looked away. He was just becoming more and more suspicious. I continued to squint my eyes.
I get it.
The boy nodded reluctantly. It seemed like he finally decided to talk.
Since I'm particularly lucky...
Excuse me?
So I'm ultimate good luck.
Ultimate good luck? There seemed to be one underlying problem I was pretty anxious to learn about. So you're saying your talent is good luck?
I don't really get it either, but that's what the school told me. Every year, one person's chosen from a nationwide lottery of ordinary high school students. That student's entered into the school under the title of Ultimate Good Luck. So by chance, it turns out I was the winner.
Somehow. That's kind of a jip.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
Naegi-kun seemed just as troubled over it as I. Anyway, his innocence was becoming more and more apparent. However, I still had no reason to believe him. It's much easier to just accept it as it was. Though, I'm not what you would call a loose woman. So, what is Mr. Ultimate Good Luck doing in this lab? Tell me, are you an acquaintance of Matsuda-kun? No lies.
Well...
Naegi pulled something out of his uniform pocket. It was something that appeared to be a thin smartphone.
Matsuda-san dropped this. It's always a hassle when someone loses something, so I thought I'd give it back to him, but...
What is this? I've never seen it before.
I'm sure this isn't your first time seeing it. Look, it's an electronic student handbook.
Naegi-kun explained that this electronic student handbook was only given out to students from the main school. It's a high-tech piece of equipment with a variety of uses, as well as just acting as a student's ID. If a student doesn't present it, they lose access to some facilities.
I found this by a bush in the courtyard. It's an inconvenience to lose this, so I thought I should come here so I could pass it back to him as quickly as possible. But he doesn't seem to be here.
What? So then, does this mean Naegi-kun is... It's no use. I can't do it.
What?
I can't say sorry to you for saying you were suspicious. You're only pretending to be a nice guy.
I'm not suspicious.
He quickly shook his head.
I'm not pretending to be nice or anything either. I just came here to give Matsuda-san's lost item back. That's really all there is to it.
Really?
Really?
Well then, I suppose whether or not there's any more to this, I'll just have to believe him for now. Fine. I see.
You believe me now?
Naegi-kun breathed a sigh of relief as he laid a hand on his chest. I turned to the boy. I pointed my index finger towards him. With the momentum, it made a stiffening sound effect, like the ones you read in manga. What you said was pretty misleading. You should have said from the very start that you weren't suspicious.
Huh? Sorry.
I don't know why he was saying sorry suddenly, but he had an apologetic expression on his face. But you know, I guess that makes you unlucky. I mean, coming all the way here to return a lost item only to find he wasn't here. I shouldn't be saying unlucky considering you're Mr. Ultimate Good Luck himself.
No, I'm used to this bad luck now.
Naegi-kun said, letting another bitter expression appear on his face. Claiming to be ultimate good luck, then saying he's used to his bad luck. Somehow it seems like he has a really unreliable talent. What a strange guy. He's strange. I don't think I could find a word that suited him more than that. That's it. He's just a strange guy. He's such an ordinarily ordinary guy. He's strange. According to my notebook, all students at Hope's Peak Academy are motivated and look towards the future. They are highly competitive and overflowing with ambition. They're brimming with hope. If it were me in his situation, I'd end up feeling bad, I guess. But it didn't seem to be the case with him. That might be the reason why I think he's so strange. Naegi-kun suddenly interrupted my train of thought.
But if that's true...
Without realizing, I asked him to repeat himself. If what's true?
It's nothing. It's not important.
He replied hurriedly. It seemed like he was just talking to himself earlier. If it's not important, then you can tell me. What do you mean by if that's true? I ended up responding with an uncharacteristically strong tone of voice. Somehow, this guy's entire nature and attitude made him strange. Hey, tell me already. If it's not important, then you should tell me. I'm right, aren't I? Hurry up and reply.
Okay.
You should only reply with okay once. I'm not your teacher.
I only said it once, didn't I?
Huh? Really? I've already forgotten. Whatever. Just hurry up and tell me. If you don't tell me already, I'll end up forgetting what it is you're telling me.
Well, you see, I've only heard a rumor, so I'm not sure if I can believe it. But I thought it might be true.
A rumor? I once again raised my finger towards him, pointing it only a few centimeters away from his forehead. Was it a rumor about me? I won't stand for any awful rumors out there tainting my good name.
No, it's nothing like that.
So then, what sort of rumor is it?
It's...
Naegi-kun looked away from me before hesitantly continuing.
The rumor said that there's a student that's become forgetful.
Become forgetful? Somehow, I couldn't say any more. Any knowledge of stringing a sentence together had mysteriously disappeared. I was planning to ask him if he knew me before I became forgetful. Suddenly, I raised my voice. I shuddered as if I had been hit by a thunderbolt.
What's wrong?
Naegi-kun turned to me again with a worried expression. I quickly opened Otonashi Ryoko's memory notebook again and flipped through the pages, and flipped, and flipped, and flipped. I saw a light that blinded my eyes for a moment. There was an explosion. The memories in my notebook and a flash of inspiration collided together and caused a violent chemical reaction. Sandwiched in my notebook was a single letter. Dear ultimate idiotic forgetful girl, I'm the one who took all your precious past memories that you so carefully wrote down. They're filled to the brim with memories of that Matsuda Yotsuke. The past carries a lot of weight, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Am I right? It does. Hey, earlier you said a student had become forgetful, didn't you? I was overtaken by an immense excitement as I stood up. So then, the students here know about me before I became forgetful. You too, right? You also knew me before I was forgetful. Speak up!
Calm down!
Naegi-kun desperately tried to settle me down.
I don't really know, but it seems like it was due to some sort of illness, but I wasn't really paying too much attention, since I'm not really all that good at talking to people.
It's fine, just hurry up and tell me. Did you know me before I was forgetful? Did you?
Well, that's...
Go on.
Yeah.
He finally gave me a small nod. I knew it, I confirmed to myself. The students at this school knew me before I had become forgetful. That means I had become forgetful after coming to this school. So then, what about the blackmail Inoshima Junko had written to me about my past memories? Did I really ever have such an important memory notebook? No, maybe it was all just a trap so she could get me to cooperate with her. In other words, a lie. So then, what else did she say? Let's see. She told me she killed someone in the Central Plaza. She also told me that I had to kill Matsuda-kun. In the first place, does a person like Inoshima Junko even exist? As my thoughts circled through my head, I tried to remain focused on my notebook. Lie and Inoshima Junko were the two key phrases that were becoming more apparent. The words written on the page started to swirl around my mind. They gradually grew faster, swirling, turning, circling. They mixed and mingled together. For some reason, the depths of my head began to tingle. It was a strange, tingling feeling. This sensation is... Huh? I feel like I'm remembering something.
Hey!
An annoying voice came pounding into my thoughts. It was Naegi-kun's voice. He didn't seem bothered by anything. I stopped concentrating on my notebook. I think I can almost remember it.
Hey!
Shut up!
Hey!
Come on, I'm trying to concentrate here.
Hey!
Would you just shut up already? I shouted at him and raised my face from my notebook. I froze. I saw an unfamiliar man standing in front of us. Who is that? He grabbed Naegi-kun's shoulders. He wore an unfamiliar school uniform and had unfamiliar long hair. His pitch-black silhouette was vastly different to his ghostly white face. Piercing eyes, similar to a reptile's, had been carved into his face. Our eyes met for a brief moment. A siren inside my head rang out, informing me of a dire emergency. I felt like I was having a heart attack as I felt my chest pound faster.
Hey!
Naegi-kun's face looked shocked. His entire body had gone stiff, and he opened his mouth.
He came in after us. Do you know him? If you do, by chance, know him, could you do me a favor and tell him to let go of me?
Unfortunately, it seems I have no idea who he is.
What was that?
The strange man growled in a low voice.
Don't tell me you've forgotten me already. That's a little harsh, isn't it?
You really do know him?
Naegi-kun asked in a puzzled voice. The man's eyes drifted down to him suspiciously.
Whether we have met before or whether it is simply fate, neither of any concern to you. You've just been caught up in it all. In the end, you just have bad luck.
I quickly dropped my line of sight to my notebook and looked for any memories about this stranger. There was only one person who came to mind. Could you be Madarai Ishiki-san?
That's right. Late that night in the Central Plaza, I, Madarai, was killed by my own target.
Killed? By your own target? Despite what he said, he looked completely uninjured to me.
I'm immortal.
Eh? The man sensed my doubts. He smiled broadly and chuckled strangely. Immortal? What is this? A fantasy-based novel? You're not being serious, are you?
You're sure about that?
What do you mean?
I'm truly immortal. If I were not, I would be unable to explain how I am now uninjured.
Well, I'm not sure about that. But how did you just change the genre to something like a war-based game?
Can I speak for a moment?
Naegi-kun cut in.
The guy who came in after us, Madarai-san, was it? If you are Madarai-san, you could have mean you're Madarai-san from the student council.
Student council? I said without thinking. Somehow, I could not see the creepy man dressed in all black in the student council.
I see. The boy knows.
Madari grimaced and closed his eyes before murmuring something.
That's right. I'm a survivor from the student council.
Survivor?
You're still pretending to be innocent after so long.
Madari opened his eyes and stared at me carefully.
It's because of that incident all this happened. That incident's the reason behind the state of the council now. I escaped with my life, but everyone else had.
No, that's not it. Madari shook his head, as if trying to disprove his own words.
Perhaps it's wrong for me to say it was lucky I survived. It's more correct to say I simply remained alive. Yes, that's it. I luckily remained alive. I was not even given the chance to fight, and for that I shall not just forgive them. I will absolutely not forgive them of stealing my chance to protect the student council. Who was it? Who did it?
Madari spat out as he clenched his hands around Naegi's shoulders. The boy's face distorted with pain, but he still attempted to object, despite his discomfort.
Excuse me, I don't really know the details, but I understand you feel angry about what happened to this council, and I understand that you hate the person who did this, but I think it might be good to instead consider rebuilding the student council before anything else.
Rebuild it? Me?
Madari scoffed.
Nah. In the first place, why do you even think someone like me belongs in the student council?
Huh?
I was only elected so the other members would be able to relax. After all, I'm only the ultimate bodyguard. I did what I could for the council. In the past, now and forever, I'm just a protector. That's all.
I heard Madari grind his teeth. His voice was filled with bitter hatred.
During that time of emergency, I was not fit to help them. I wasn't even a target during the incident. Perhaps the criminal did not consider me to be a member of the council. Can you even imagine how humiliating this has been for me? I wasn't even given a chance to utilize my own talent. The feeling I had from having my own talent trampled on was... You bastards better be imagining what it felt like so you can relate.
Madari gripped Naegi-kun's shoulders even more tightly. The pain the young man felt only increased, and he yelled out.
Now, I can only protect the remaining dignity of the student council. It would not end until I've atoned for them. I must confront it. That's why I must exact revenge. I'm no longer able to slack off. I'm willing to do anything.
The man's eyes were stained red, not focusing on anything anymore. In any case, the man seemed completely settled on the idea of pushing his point. I don't know anything about what happened. I ended up trying to excuse myself for whatever actions I did. I felt an overwhelming fear come over me as I desperately tried to make an excuse to run away. I don't have anything to do with the student council, or know anything about any incidents that happened, or anything dangerous of that sort at all. I'm just some innocent bystander.
As if.
Madari disagreed. He sounded like he was making a death threat to his worst enemy.
We talked about it earlier. You know all about that incident.
I really don't know anything about it. If you think I'm lying, then please look at this notebook. I opened Otonashi Ryoko's memory notebook and waved it in front of Madarai. I haven't written anything in here about it. This is my proof. I don't know anything about it, and I have nothing to do with it.
Would you cut the crap already? That notebook of yours doesn't prove anything. Why are you hiding the truth? Are you the criminal's apprentice? Can't talk about it. Or maybe you're really...
And I have nothing to do with it. I suddenly screamed at him. I instantly regretted doing so. I only added fuel to the fire. I thought he'd be really angry at me, but it seems like my prediction was way off the mark. In fact, his face was surprisingly blank. His emotions had flatlined. He didn't even blink. Any concept of time around the man had come to a complete stop. Naegi-kun sensed Madarai's malice and looked behind him timidly.
Come to think of it, I haven't heard this boy's name yet, have I?
He remained expressionless, only his mouth moving.
I'm Makoto Naegi.
Hearing that, Madarai laughed softly and leaned down to speak in Naegi-kun's ear.
Say, Naegi-kun, were you listening to what I was saying before?
Huh?
Madarai suddenly released Naegi-kun's shoulders, only to place both of his hands on either side of Naegi-kun's head.
Ah!
Naegi-kun's face instantly morphed into a terrified expression.
I said earlier, didn't I? I'm willing to do anything for vengeance.
Madarai looked like a demon as he opened his mouth. He smiled and laughed, his voice full of poisonous venom. This is bad. That guy is incredibly dangerous. Somehow, I was only left with the ability to shiver and tremble like a frightened little bunny. I have no choice but to make a run for it, and quick!
You're not thinking of running, are you?
My foot suddenly stopped in midair.
If you do that, what do you think will happen to this boy here?
Huh? Huh?
As I heard this, Naegi-kun's face changed from blue to white. Wow, what a colorful face he has!
This is the last warning you get! So watch yourself. If you don't obey me, this guy's head will be tragically crushed in an unfortunate accident.
What the... I could only feel confused. Both of them looked at me. Say something. Madarai's stare intimidated me, like he was about to do something reckless. Help me. Naegi-kun's eyes pleaded to me. Intimidating eyes and pleading eyes. Both were entirely focused on me and... What a bother. It was a bother to go to the hassle of doing either. There's nothing I would really be able to do, or wanted to do, I guess. That's why, for me, this was something that had nothing to do with me. That's right. It has nothing to do with me. Sure, I happen to be swept along with the current, but that's all. I wasn't involved with the creation of the situation at all. I don't even know anything about what happened. That's why it has nothing to do with me. 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 I mumbled quietly, reminding the people in front of me, as well as just myself. I was mumbling my magical enchantment.
Huh?
Having heard that, both Madarai and Naegi-kun looked at me with vacant expressions.
What do you mean it has nothing to do with you?
A confused Madarai raised his voice.
There's no way you're not involved. After it's your fault this boy here's been caught up in all this.
You're wrong. I found myself replying flatly. I'm not the reason as to why he became involved in this whole thing. He got himself involved. It's not my fault he has god-awful luck. In the end, I really have nothing to do with this.
Hey, wait a...
As Naegi-kun tried to interrupt me, I raised my voice to continue my argument. It's a shame, but it's obvious Naegi-kun has no luck at all, I said in the calmest tone I could muster. He just has an insane power to take and give life because of his complete lack of luck. So I think you have no choice but to give up. Anyway, no matter what the case is, I've already forgotten. After all, I forget everything sooner or later, with the exception of Matsuda-kun. So as far as I see it, there's not really much out there that actually does have anything to do with me. I continue to mutter to myself these words. In all truth, I really had nothing to do with it. Then I'll forget that too. My brief meeting with Naegi-kun, the information he knew, I'll forget that as well. There's no reason for me to feel bad about him. So that's why I always say this has nothing to do with me.
Have you decided what you're going to do?
I don't know. I keep telling you that this has nothing to do with me.
Is that so? I see.
Madari bared his teeth, murmuring in a low voice.
I hope you're prepared to see the extent of my resolution.
There really are strange people who are ready to go as far as to kill another human in order to prove their point. It's insane to think he would accomplish anything by killing Naegi-kun. Naegi-kun really doesn't have any luck. He's gotten himself into a hostage situation after all.
This is the end.
Madari gripped Naegi-kun's skull with all the strength in his hands and...
You're wrong.
A voice resounded throughout the room that seemed to dissolve the tension in the air. A crazy person ran into the lab. The figure appeared to slide towards Madari and hammered the back of their fists into the man's nose, making it bend to a strange angle. Madari squinted his eyes shut in pain. He seemed to lose sight of his attacker as he fell down. After giving Madari's chest a prod, the stranger turned to Naegi-kun and grasped his head in their hands before moving to pick Naegi-kun up. They placed him gently on top of the bed and turned around. Madari flew towards them. The stranger gracefully roundhouse kicked and hit Madari square on the chin. The blow completely smashed his key point and rocked his head violently. He fell to the ground, having no energy left. By the way, this scene I just witnessed, it passed in the blink of an eye. The stranger skillfully landed without making a sound after they finished their kick. Their skirt gently floated down. Oh, there is she?
Ikusaba-san!
Naegi-kun called out from the bed in relief. Ikusaba-san? It seems like that is this girl's name. Of course, this is the first time I've heard her name. Naegi-kun got up from the bed and ran hurriedly to the girl.
Thank you, Ikusaba-san! Thank you so much!
He said, thanking her over and over again. However, the girl remained completely calmed and composed in response. Well, I say calm and composed, but I think it's more like she just doesn't feel anything.
I was only helping my classmate.
She mumbled quietly to herself, stubbornly. Ikusaba-san avoided his gaze. But it's odd, looking at her now. You wouldn't guess she had just been fighting brilliantly only a few moments beforehand.
Ah, but... Ikusaba-san, why are you here?
I must admit, I was wondering the same thing. Usually, it's only Matsuda-kun in this lab. That's what I had written down in my notes. Also, it seems like he's absent today. But he has been getting a multitude of visitors. Maybe he's been working on something big.
Oh,
Ikusaba-san raised her voice slightly, but it was barely above a whisper. I listened carefully.
I was just passing by.
Why'd you phrase it like a question? I asked without thinking.
Ikusaba-san, you haven't changed one bit.
Naegi-kun interrupted.
So then, you were just passing by when you came across what was happening and you came to save us, right?
Ikusaba-san nodded in response.
That's it. And you saved me. I was getting worried for a moment there. Thank you, Ikusaba-san. Thank you so much.
Naegi-kun sighed a breath of relief and continued to repeat his sincere thanks, much to Ikusaba-san's embarrassment. Luck. Somehow, that was how we were saved. Pure luck. But that is only in a manner of speaking. All thanks to such a strong person who was passing by, we were able to escape from such a predicament, but this luck was really convenient and good. On the other hand, Madari's actions were inconvenient to say the least. So, this is ultimate good luck? But if it is luck, I can't help but feel that it was all because of it that we were caught up in all this.
Excuse me.
Eh? I suddenly realized Ikusaba-san was standing right in front of me. What? I leapt back without thinking. Now that I think about it, did I really not notice her? Did she teleport? For some reason, Ikusaba remained silent. I waited for her to show any signs of opening her mouth to speak, but I ended up giving in and raising my own voice. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for earlier.
Huh?
Naegi-kun raised his voice in surprise. He walked to us, invading our line of sight as he blinked in surprise. But what was so surprising?
I'm Ikusaba Makuro.
I tilted my head to the side slightly. In response, Ikusaba-san raised her voice a little more.
I'm the ultimate soldier from the 78th batch. Nice to meet you.
Without even blinking, she moved her mouth as little as possible as she introduced herself. The moment she finished, she returned to utter silence. Speaking honestly, she seemed like a quiet girl by nature. Then again, she is an ultimate soldier. She probably acts like this around everyone. Perhaps every soldier is like this. However, I haven't met any members of the military before, so I have no way of knowing. I just don't know. I was in silence with her. Even Naegi was silent, but he was as puzzled as before. Madari, still foaming at the mouth, was, of course, silent too. Everyone was silent. An awkward silence. But the awkwardness didn't last long. After some time, I forgot about the awkward silence. Instead, another thought wandered into my mind. Now that I think about it, Matsuda-kun isn't here. That's right. The only thing I can ever remember is Matsuda-kun. I wonder if Matsuda-kun is on an errand. I want to see him soon. I hope he comes back quickly. My thoughts continued as I stared into space and... The girl crouched down suddenly. I think her name was Ikusaba-san?
What's wrong?
A surprised boy, Naegi-kun, I think, asked. The girl replied in a warning tone.
Someone's there.
The atmosphere of the lab became much more tense. Hiding?
Sorry for interrupting. I wasn't trying to hide, but you shouldn't spread rumors about people.
A voice rose, and everyone instinctively looked around the lab. Huh? But no matter how hard we looked, there wasn't anyone there.
No, I'm here! Look, over here!
Where? Feeling somewhat panicked, I continued looking around the room restlessly.
Over there!
Naegi-kun pointed out. Ikusaba-san walked to the laboratory door. I noticed a little later than the others. In front of the door stood a boy with a pure, innocent face.
Oh, you finally noticed me.
The boy's face lacked any distinctive features. His voice also had a complete lack of any unique tones.
It took you a little while, but you noticed me in the end. Well, it's my talent's fault, so it can't be helped. I'll forgive you. Why is a kid here?
Naegi-kun suddenly said, taken aback by the boy.
Hey, you shouldn't treat me like I'm a kid. Don't think it's rare to see someone with a baby face, but I'm a meritorious high school student at Hope Peak Academy. I even went to trouble using a difficult word like meritorious. What's all this then?
The boy's line of sight fell to where Madari was.
Oh my. Looks like you've got yourselves into quite a mess. You're wrong about that.
Naegi-kun quickly ran in between the boy and Madari, trying to obstruct his view.
How to put it? It might look like a slight accident, but...
The boy patted his hand on Naegi-kun's shoulder.
Don't fret. There's no need to make excuses around me. I'm actually also investigating this case. Isn't that right, big sis?
Despite having the reins of his great story handed over to me, I didn't remember anything about it at all. I wasn't able to muster any more than, I guess so, and tilt my head to the side.
Huh? Don't tell me. You've forgotten about me again?
He folded his arms and nodded happily.
Well, I'm used to people forgetting who I am, so it's fine. It's just another side effect of my talent. Look, I said I have no presence, didn't I? People don't notice me very often, and they say that they forget about me a lot. But you know, big sis.
The boy started rubbing his hands and raised his voice again.
I have a request that this time when I say my name, you remember it. My name is Kamishiro Yuto. I'm an ultimate spy from the 77th batch.
Wait a second. I protested as the boy came closer to me. I opened up Otonashi Ryoko's memory notebook and tried to quickly find any memories mentioning the boy. Ah, I got it. Kamishiro-kun. I remember you. Kamishiro-kun was absolutely no unique features whatsoever.
I wouldn't say none,
murmured Ikusuba-san with a neutral expression.
He looks like a doll, made by someone with the creativeness of a politician. He gives off bad vibes.
I didn't think she was the type to say things so bluntly. Kamishiro-kun glared at Ikusaba-san for a moment before returning his stare to me, and then said in a very over-the-top voice,
Well, then, it's really awful that you're so forgetful, big sis. When you first told me, I thought you were joking. I almost laughed. Wait, that isn't something you should confess in front of a person.
Having heard him, Naegi-kun quickly interjected, but Kamishiro-kun paid him no mind.
I don't need to be careful. I've always thought being careful was for losers. But I don't think you have any experience with that, do you, big bro? You see, I understand completely.
Kamishiro-kun slipped past Naegi-kun and stood in front of me and made sure we were face to face before saying any more.
You really are amazingly forgetful. Saying such ditzy things don't really fit you, but I like it. Actually, there's a lot of girls out there with ditzy personalities now that I think about it. In fact, my equipment down below gets a little harder just thinking about them.
We all blinked in surprise. The culprit was, of course, the blunt, explicit adult joke.
Well, in any case, she's my client, so I'm genuinely relieved to see nothing happen to her. But in the end...
Kamishiro-kun turned his line of sight back to Madarai.
No matter how much I think about it, I can't decide if this is a bad situation or not. I thought it really was. You know, they say my personality is warm and friendly enough to melt all the ice cream in a convenience store, though I suppose something like that's more of a pet peeve to some. I think maybe it was overkill.
Naegi-kun once again began to apologize about the situation.
How to put it? Perhaps it's better to say that it was self-defense? That's not what I meant.
Kamishiro-kun said, hitting him lightly. He slowly walked over to Madarai's body and mumbled to himself.
Honestly, talk about a worst-case scenario. Well, it won't solve anything anyhow. When he wakes up, will you resort to violence again? What will you do? You can't just leave him here now, can you? Well, if we all go to the security department and explain... We can't do that, big bro.
He stared at Naegi-kun, analyzing him.
You do know I came all the way here just so I could have an important talk to Big Sis, my client. You understand? It's an important talk, got it? What I'm trying to say is we're too busy. But...
Naegi-kun was completely overpowered by Kamishiro-kun's icy cold stare. Unexpectedly, a voice sounded out throughout the room.
I'll do something about it.
Everyone turned to look at Ikusaba-san. The girl quickly lowered her gaze to the ground and repeated herself.
I'll do something about it.
And you could do it by yourself?
Kamishiro-kun asked, drawing closer to her. The girl nodded.
The heck, do you even understand me?
The next moment, Kamishiro-kun's eyes sparked brightly.
I see. I get it now. You can take care of this all by yourself? Hearing that really puts my mind to ease. By the way, it'd be better not to mention this to the security department, since it'll be difficult to deal with them. Wait a second.
Naegi interrupted him again.
If we don't properly explain the situation, Ikusaba-san will be blamed. Huh?
Kamishiro-kun remained staring intently at Naegi-kun. I couldn't imagine his young face any more and felt myself get hot. Naegi-kun remained dead silent.
You still don't get me even though I've said it 1,000,000 times already? Big Sis and I are busy. We have no time to help you clear this up. You side characters could go ahead and do it without our permission. In the first place, since you're the guys who resorted to such a violent situation, it makes you the bad guys. If it were me, I would have done a much better job.
He continued to prattle on about his self-importance. Naegi-kun couldn't find any words to reply with, but somehow he had not yet lost his head. Ikusaba-san murmured a little more.
It's okay. I'll do something about it, so...
Ikusaba-san!
It's fine.
Ikusaba-san managed to silence the worried Naegi-kun. Kamishiro-kun and I turned to one another, and he muttered,
It might be good to head off now. Well then, it's decided.
Kamishiro-kun had an innocent smile on his face, and he clapped his hands happily.
Leave the job to Big Sis over there. Idiotic Big Sis and I are gonna go somewhere else.
Kamishiro-kun grabbed my hand, and with a quick,
Yay! Let's go! Let's go!
he started acting like a child dragging his poor parents to the toy store. Wait a mo-
It's fine. You want to go back to your peaceful old life, don't you, Big Sis? So you should just quiet down and come with me.
Kamishiro-kun continued dragging me along behind him until we reached the door of the lab. I looked back hopelessly. The ever-expressionless Ikusaba-san and Naegi-kun, looking worried again, stood up. Naegi-kun took a single step. He had a look of determination. He quickly became startled, however. Ikusaba-san had laid her hand back on his shoulder. He looked back to her. She warned him and nodded softly. Seeing that Naegi-kun seemed to give in, relaxing his shoulders, he turned to look at me once more. The two figures disappeared in the distance.
Now then, let's move on and do our best!
The moment we entered the hallway, Kamishiro-kun excitedly cheered.
Let's solve your problem!
Kamishiro-kun continued to walk, leaving me behind. Wait for me! I called out as I hurriedly ran after him, but my mind was drifting elsewhere. I was thinking about Naegi-kun looking at me for that last moment. His eyes sent me a burning feeling of unease. The individual named Naegi Makoto gave me a sense of unreliability and had a weak demeanor. But in the depths of his eyes at that moment, there was an incredible strength from his very core that shook all my previous preconceptions of who this person was. He looked at me with a dazzling aura. Whether there was a problem, whether he had an unbeatable enemy, he always would have a strength so strong he could never give up. Such an unforeseeable person looked straight at me with those eyes. I don't understand how I can feel this way around such a strange, mysterious force. However, I doubt I'll ever need to know. After all, he has nothing to do with me. But that's not just a reason I'm using because it suits me. I just feel as though he basically has nothing to do with me. For example, as if we were in an alternate dimension, surely Naegi-kun's story and my own story will never cross paths again. In conclusion, we have nothing to do with each other. I felt like that for some reason. So, I'll forget that boy with a reason. That was what I had concluded as I walked down the biology building hallways. In fact, in just a matter of minutes, I completely forgot his existence.
Chapter 20. Red eyes. The whites of the eyes seemed almost painted red. As the eyes turned towards their companion, Yasuke Matsuda muttered a question. How long have you been conscious? After blinking for a strangely long time, the person on the bed, Ultimate Student Council President Murasame Soshin, opened his mouth slowly. His lips were parched and made a dry sound as he opened his mouth. Always. His voice was quiet and hoarse. He sounded like a completely different person in comparison to before. So that's how it's been. Matsuda let a grin creep into his expression. He turned to his friend, showing a friendly smile. But don't you think it's stupid to trick me like that? However, Murasame didn't make a sound. His eyes showed no emotion as he stared at Matsuda. Matsuda continued in his joking tone to help calm the tense atmosphere. Must have taken a lot of acting on your part. Your actual physiological symptoms and echoes of such have almost completely disappeared. Yet you were easily able to cease being a normal person. We wouldn't have been in this situation had I not seen through your act. Why did you come? His reply came with a violent attitude. As if giving up, Matsuda's expression returned to a more sober look. You said that earlier. You asked those ancient artifacts from the steering committee that. I want you to find out whether you really woke up or not. In response, Murasame only looked away, redirecting his attention to the ceiling and blinking without meaning. To be honest, even I'm having my doubts. Matsuda licked his dry lips before continuing. What if I told those people that you're awake? Murasame remained silent to Matsuda's questioning. Like a remote-controlled car with a flat battery, his reactions were slow and sluggish at best. Maybe it isn't just acting. Matsuda breathed out a deep sigh. He just answered his own question. Still, I'm sure the news will surprise them. After that, I already guessed what would happen. Didn't they used to say when people needed to prepare for the worst, desperate times call for desperate measures? At the moment, they're relying entirely on influential people outside the school to cover up this incident. Matsuda looked away from Murasame and slowly gazed at his surroundings. Instead of looking for some kind of reaction from Murasame, he turned to the surrounding electronic equipment, as if trying to communicate with it. After all, they can't afford to make up excuses for this, like allowing a known threat into the general public. They can't just pretend there's no danger. There are also people who say a ruthless person can't be a good researcher. Well, not that it matters. Depends on how much talent there is. Matsuda stayed talkative and Murasame didn't even shift an eyebrow. Soshin used to be the kind of person who'd at least pretend to laugh no matter how bad the joke was. It seemed like that man was no longer there. The issue isn't that he's feeling depressed. As Matsuda sighed, he brushed his hair out of his face. His long, narrow eyes looked sharply at Murasame. Oi, Murasame. This isn't a bargaining point, but I do want to tell you. I'm saying this to make sure you understand. The school's intentions and the steering committee's intentions are very different. To be truthful, I don't care what those guys think. I just want to know what the hell is happening at this school. So then I'm just pretending. Murasame suddenly opened his mouth. Matsuda saw him smile. Or maybe he imagined it. In the next moment, any trace of it had completely disappeared. The reaction he just gave him proved that good person was still there. There might be some more to this. Matsuda took off his jacket and untucked his worn-out white shirt, returning to his more familiar appearance. It wasn't because he had become more relaxed. If anything, it was the opposite. It felt more like he was getting down to business. I get it. I don't think you'll be able to escape by just using this act. Even though you're in this state, you're still worried about the school, and you're willing to fight for it. That's why you're using this act, so you can escape from the eyes of the steering committee. Matsuda sat down on the bed and leaned in to say something. If I were you, I'd be trying to get used to this kind of power. I'll protect you if I have to. Once I give my full support to those guys, you might even be able to fight along with them, since it's not always that bad to fight alongside the bad guys. Matsuda once again asked how Murasame's condition was, only to see Murasame would not reply or react. No matter what the force behind it is, I still don't know very much about the incident. That's why I need you to survive and explain it to me. But Murasame lowered his eyelids slightly. At the very least, from what Matsuda could gather, his slight movement meant refusal. Matsuda thought this would be the case, but he had a more pressing question. Though he didn't particularly want to hear the answer which may be given, because it was something he'd been told before. The culprit is Izuru Kamakura, correct? That was his question. I heard about it from the staff members. The name of the person who survived the incident and then went missing afterwards is called Izuru Kamakura. But does that person really exist? After a short silence, Murasame finally opened his mouth. Kamakura Izuru killed the student council. His voice was hoarse and unused, but he conveyed his message. So then, Izuru Kamakura's real? Matsuda listened for confirmation, but Murasame didn't reply. His mouth remained open, stiff and unmoving. Oi, Murasame! Matsuda called out, urging him on, the boy's mouth finally moving again. Whatever. He finished saying only that. Matsuda sensed something from his word. So then, that doesn't matter. There was no sense of crisis in the Hope's-Peak Academy Murasame held on to. So then it isn't a known fact whether Izuru Kamakura is the culprit behind the incident or not. Matsuda's thoughts went along the lines of, that must be it. There was one more thing Matsuda needed to hear above all else, he'd realised. He breathed in heavily. Before giving himself a chance to hesitate, he asked his question. What about Junko Enoshima? What connection does she have to the incident? Murasame closed his eyes. It was a blink that seemed to last forever. The next moment he opened his eyes again. His face was unfamiliar. Tears were threatening to spill from his open eyes. He made a gritting sound with his teeth bared. His crazed expression turned into one of pure exhaustion. Then Matsuda realised. The person named Murasame Soshin was no longer there. The man they called Ultimate Student Council President was completely gone. The boy who was familiar to him had met his end. That thing opened its mouth painfully wide. He began to spit out words that didn't even sound like words.
I must kill. I must kill.
I must kill?
Who? Who are you talking about?
Matsuda placed his hands on that thing's bedside and looked down to him as he asked. Huge, red, sore eyes turned towards Matsuda briefly.
Junko Enoshima.
The inside of his body was beaten by something as he was overtaken by shock. It was the beating of his own heart. The harsh impact it caused Matsuda to lose his own voice. Suddenly, that thing screamed out. Blood rushed to his face, flushing it to a dark red, making him look like a demon.
Junko Enoshima, Junko Enoshima, Junko Enoshima, Junko Enoshima, Junko Enoshima, Junko Enoshima, Junko Enoshima.
That thing continued to scream horribly, sounding like a broken record.
Kill! 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 Kill!
He kept screaming and yelling. Over and over again he continued to scream. As that thing screamed with his entire body, Matsuda began to feel a little cold. It wasn't that he was composed. That feeling was lost. It was as if his body temperature itself had dropped. He already understood everything. He understood everything about the worst, largest incident in Hope's-Peak Academy's history. Murasame Soshin's true enemy, and Hope's-Peak Academy's true enemy, was, most likely, Junko Enoshima. That was his conclusion. He'd already guessed it as the worst-case scenario. Matsuda had no choice but to establish his despair-inducing resolve. So then, I'm out of options. I passed the point of no return a long time ago. Something around his lower abdomen began to bubble and boil. Still hot, his whole body became energetic. Matsuda turned to Murasame.
Hey, I said earlier that I'd protect you if I had to, didn't I?
He spoke in a calm tone of voice.
But there's also someone else I have to protect at all costs. They're hopeless if I don't protect them. So, I've decided I'll sacrifice anything to do it.
As the words left his mouth, they were swallowed by screams. Even so, Matsuda continued to talk.
I'm awful. I don't particularly want to think about that. If I forget the person I care for, and if they died, that thought is unbearable. So I'll protect them. No matter what happens, I'll protect them.
As Matsuda spoke softly, he placed both of his hands around that thing's neck.
Kill! 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 Kill!
Even so, that thing continued to shout out. He didn't seem to understand what was happening. If there's a grudge against me for this, then there's a grudge against me. Matsuda closed his eyes and thought to himself. I don't mean that person. I mean I'll hold a grudge against myself. In the next moment, Matsuda gathered all his power into his hands and squeezed. Finally, the incredibly loud voice, the scream of "that thing," had come to a stop. The bed to which he was assigned started to shake with a loud rattling sound. Matsuda was leaning forward, his hair falling in front of his eyes. He didn't loosen his grip. Instead, he tightened it. He put all his power into his hands. Quickly, the shaking subsided. The feeling of what his hands were wrapped around disappeared. The feeling of that thing ending. After a while, Matsuda finally opened his eyes again. All the muscles in his body felt exhausted and tense, as if he'd become a solid piece of iron. Sweat dripped from his forehead, landing on his long eyelashes. He blankly turned his line of sight towards that thing on top of the bed. The light from those eyes had disappeared. All that was left was a deep darkness. Those eyes held a darkness deeper than the colour of darkness itself. Chapter 21.
In one of the East District's cafeterias. Its de facto name is the Third School Cafeteria. Although there are several cafeterias scattered throughout the campus, this is the most popular by far, apparently. During noon, it's filled not only with students, but also teaching staff lined up in a queue. It seems the secret behind the popularity of this cafeteria is the student they call Ultimate Cook, who boasts of his own unique recipes. His food isn't governed by a genre or common sense, and I hear it's so addictive you can't help but feel like it must contain drugs, but come to think of it, it doesn't really matter since I've forgotten how addictive it is. Well, in any case, even now the student cafeteria is filled with students, so there wasn't a single seat available. For someone like me standing by myself, this atmosphere was anything but comfortable.
I'm here too, you know!
Did you hear me?
I told you I'm the ultimate secret agent from the 77th batch Kamishiro Yuto! Come on, how many times do I have to introduce myself?
Kamishiro-kun said as he made a cross shape with his arms in front of me.
Damn it, seems like we have bad chemistry. I was praying to God a lot that we'd be a good combination. Too bad.
What kind of god were you praying to? In any case, it seems Kamishiro-kun and I certainly do have bad chemistry. Forgettable Kamishiro-kun and forgetful me, he was holding what looked to be a mixture of pale kalpis and water.
Well, whatever. What's more important is starting our conversation.
Right, we can do that, but I looked around at the students bustling through the cafeteria. Why come here of all places? Kamishiro-kun waved his short finger in front of me with a tisk-tisk-tisk.
It's bad taste to answer such a question to an outsider. If anything, this is the perfect place for it. If we talked about this in a place with only a few people, someone would be able to overhear us easily. It's a theory I have that we should hide like we're extras in an adult video.
So what you're saying is, if we need to talk about something important, we should pretend we're having a normal chat.
What I'm saying is, it'd be lonely if I was here by myself.
Our casual conversation was buried in the sound of the hustle and bustle around us.
See? No one cares about our conversation, do they?
Kamishiro-kun had a huge grin on his face, like he had just committed some fantastic prank. He then moved on to the main topic.
It's the reason why I wanted to talk to you as soon as possible. Did anyone go into your room this morning, big sis?
Did they?
It's fine if you've forgotten. Just checking your notebook.
Surprised, I did as I was told and took out Otonashi Ryoko's memory notebook and looked through it. Ah! I remembered in no time at all. I couldn't help but yell out as I remembered. I remember! I know, it was Enoshima Junko! That girl suddenly came into my room! Kamishiro suddenly leaned forward.
So then, that person really was Junko Enoshima. I knew it. Yep, it seems like that wiretap I put in your room worked perfectly.
Huh? Say, Kamishiro-kun.
What?
What did you say just now? Did you say a wire trap?
Yeah, I said that. I said wiretap. What about it?
A wire trap?
Yes, it's a common machine used for eavesdropping.
I quickly stood from my chair. How is that normal? I screamed at the top of my lungs. Normal, common people don't use those machines. Kamishiro-kun's face was as calm as ever.
Let's not rant on about the wiretap. It was crime prevention.
Wiretraps aren't just used to prevent crimes.
Ah ha ha! So you noticed. Clap, clap, clap.
As he verbally applauded me, he took out a giant paper bag from under his chair. The boy immediately shoved his hand into a bag and pulled out a sweetbread.
Ah, sugar twist donut.
As he cheered out by himself, he happily crammed it into his mouth. That's a little rude. I have no idea what you just said. Kamishiro-kun swallowed down the sweetbread that had been stuffed into his mouth.
I said, I don't want you to misunderstand me. I didn't just wiretap you, big sis. In a broader sense of speaking, I guess I wiretapped around this many people?
Kamishiro-kun held up all his fingers. 10 people?
100 people.
100 people? Each finger was to signify a unit of 10 people.
You could sit 100 people in an Abamanoki shed, no problem.
I was stunned at the unexpected amount of people he counted. He continued to explain the reason why.
The reason is, I rotate between girls a lot, basically. That way I can have fun with you and best suits you at the time of the month. I guess that's why I like heavy rotation so much.
He puffed at his chest. No, that doesn't matter. In any case, how did you manage to wiretrap 100 people's rooms?
It's easy with my ability. Sneak into places like the girls' toilets or their dressing rooms, a piece of cake.
Do something else with that piece of cake.
Making it nice and creamy, with extra cream.
This is all pretty confusing in English, but he says doing things before breakfast in Japanese, which is like saying it's a piece of cake. So Otanashi tells him to do something else before breakfast. He then says something is growing, but I've heard the word he said can be used for ejaculation. This is getting out of hand. The hand, the leg, the head, the back. It's getting out of everything.
Let bygones be bygones.
The boy wiped away his problems with a simple phrase and started talking about a different subject.
When you big sisters are in a room, you sure are noisy, aren't you? Because of that, I could barely hear any of the conversation. So, why'd Junko come visit you? She came because she had an errand for you to run, didn't she?
As he said that, he took out another sweetbread.
A cup's paw made in Germany!
He looked like he was tasting a rare delicacy as he munched on it. Well, that's... My eyes dropped down to my notebook as I answered him. It seems she came to give me a hint.
A hint?
I flipped through the notebook. Enoshima Junko's purpose. Kamishiro-kun looked surprised at my words.
Tell me in more detail. What did Junko say her purpose was?
Kamishiro-kun asked with a more forceful voice. I read aloud my memories from my notebook, also feeling very tense. It seems like Enoshima Junko has two purposes. The first is to crush Kamakura Azuru until nothing is left. Do you know what that means?
Keep going.
He coldly prompted. I looked back down to my notebook. The second is... I read on ahead a little and was shocked by what I read. It was as if someone had killed me by pounding my spine with a hammer. I felt a sudden intense shock surge through my body.
Big sis?
What the hell? It says, kill your beloved darling, Matsuda Yasuke. As soon as I said it, my brain felt like it was having a nuclear meltdown. My surroundings began to rock from side to side. It wasn't an earthquake. I, myself, was the one shaking. My head felt hot, unavoidably so. Only my body was cold. I was stricken by the less familiar feelings of fear and anger all at once. I was shaking violently for reasons I could not understand.
Calm down, big sis.
The inside of my head was numb with fear. There was a voice echoing quietly. I was brought back to my senses to find Kamishiro-kun saying something to me.
The kill thing has to be a bluff. There's no way a person can kill so lightly. If she really planned to kill him, she wouldn't bother declaring it to you until long after murdering him. Am I right?
That would be true. I know that. But I can't stop my body from shaking. You're right. There's no way she'd kill him. My voice was shaking so much, I almost couldn't form a single word.
In the meantime, it might be better for you to just not say anything until you calm down,"
he said lazily as he gulped down the bread in his hand.
"Instead, you should listen to my reasoning from now on,"
he announced loudly.
"Okay, let's get a move on then."
Kamishiro-kun suddenly straightened his posture enthusiastically, and he started the reasoning part.
"Firstly, there's the problem of the advance notice of Yasuke Matsuda's death that you're so worried about. I think that's a bluff. I mean, there's no sense in telling others about a murder you've yet to commit. She may have been using it as a threat, but that's also unlikely. It's definitely a bluff. For now, that's our understanding of it. But we should be more wary of that girl's first purpose."
Enoshima Junko's first purpose. That's certainly...
"No. Even so, crushing Izuru Kamakura until nothing is left is... Honestly, even I was a little surprised. It's too much of a coincidence. I didn't think I'd hear Izuru Kamakura's name."
Who's that?
"Did you ask who's that person?"
Kamishiro-kun patted his chest with his hand.
"They're the culprit."
The boy leaned forward over the table and spoke in an excited voice.
"I was surprised, since Izuru Kamakura is the culprit behind the worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history."
Eh? The culprit behind the worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy history. Speaking of which, what is the worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy history? I tilted my head to the side.
"Wait, I can tell by your reaction that you don't remember."
Kamishiro huffed and pouted.
"It's boring to show off my deductions of other big sisters, but from now on, I should expect your reaction when I tell you my reasoning."
Kamishiro-kun really did look bored as he exhaled deeply. Then he began to talk again.
"When I told you the other day, you didn't remember that either, but you didn't even bother to ask me whether the worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history really happened or not, did you? But now I can say with more confidence..."
Kamishiro-kun clicked his fingers right in front of my eyes.
"The worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history. Izuru Kamakura is the culprit behind it."
He wore a proud expression as he declared it. After a while of wearing that expression, he spoke again.
"That wasn't the reaction I was waiting for."
He said his one-sided excuses as I tried to regain my composure.
"The reason as to why I believe this is the case is also why I called this meeting."
Kamishiro leaned over to face my car and whispered in a small voice.
"Actually, I overheard a conversation between faculty members."
Overheard. Somehow, that filled me with a sense of dread.
"The people having the conversation were on school campus, but they seemed to be very careful. They didn't mind spilling out all their complaints when in their own private rooms, though. Like after a love affair, it was the #1 most stale atmosphere. Honestly, those guys from Office Romances are scary."
You don't mean...
"Oh, it's been a while since you last talked."
Was it a while? No, I wasn't worried about that. More importantly...
"Oh my. As expected, I think the wiretap I installed in the female teaching staff's room has been at least a little useful thus far. We should call this operation the Elite Female Staff are Set Up with a Dilemma."
I see. How nice. Understandably, my reaction ended up seeming pretty idiotic.
"In any case, the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together. The worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history is Izuru Kamakura and Junko Enoshima. Once we find out what the connection between them is, we'll be able to solve this case."
So then, it'll only take a little longer?
"Yeah, just a little."
Kamishiro-kun's expression became shrouded.
"Putting it another way, we need to take one more step. Here's my prediction. Once we connect one more piece, all the secrets will be revealed. If that happens, we'll understand soon afterwards."
There's only one piece left? So, are you going to talk to Kamakura Izuru in person? They're the culprit, aren't they? Kamishiro-kun made a troubled face, tilting his head to the side at my question.
I don't think I can. After all, no one knows where they are."
Don't know where they are? So they're missing?
"I wouldn't call it missing, per se."
Kamishiro-kun's face only became more and more troubled. His tone of voice became more serious.
"The human named Izuru Kamakura isn't a member of the regular school, the prep school, or the teaching staff. In fact, I can't find any mention of that person's name anywhere in Hope's Peak Academy. No boys, no girls, no student graduated or presently attending."
Uh-huh.
"I think the most likely possibility is someone wiped the record clean. What a nasty business. I believe it would have been someone inside the school, but not someone within the inner workings of the school. It's too risky for them.
So then, there's an accomplice within the school.
It's strange, though. For as long as I investigated, I haven't found a single student who knows who the person called Azuro Kamakura is. The school began hiding them after the incident, so it wouldn't be strange if there were students who knew about them before it. However, I never thought there'd be no sign of their existence from the very beginning.
No way. They really are a ghost?
Stop that! They're not anything like a ghost!
Kamishiro-kun puffed out his cheeks. He looked really mad. Evidently, he disliked the turn the conversation took.
Anyway.
Kamishiro-kun cleared his throat slightly and readjusted his face to a more serious expression as he talked.
No matter what the reason is, if we don't find out who Azuro Kamakura is, we may have no choice but to give up.
Give up? I suddenly raised my voice. Kamishiro-kun shook his finger in front of my face with another tisk tisk tisk.
No good to jump to conclusions. As I was saying, we may have no choice but to give up coming at it from that perspective. If we can't figure it out from that perspective, it'd be easier to come at it from a different perspective. It's stupid to always look at things from one point of view. For example, you only ever look at a middle schooler's boobs, you never see her ass.
I see. Thank goodness. My reasonable reaction turned to an idiotic one, and I replied, overly cheerful. So, what's the other perspective?
Junko Enoshima, of course.
Enoshima Junko. We always return to that girl's name. I felt shivers go down my spine.
Thanks to the conversation I overheard for the female staff, I finally understood in what way Junko Enoshima is connected to the worst, largest incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history.
Kamishiro-kun shot a quick glance to me, checking my exceedingly weak reaction, and he let out a large sigh.
Looks like you don't remember, but other than being the person who started the rumor of the incident, it's a mystery as to whatever connection she has to it. But it's a mystery I've finally cracked. It seems she's the girl who discovered it.
Discovered it? But isn't that suspicious?
Since this is a mystery novel, she's primarily a suspect,
said Kamishiro-kun, nodding.
But you know that, don't you? She's already been interrogated by the school.
Interrogated?
I told you! If you don't remember, check your notebook!
Kamishiro-kun was yelling like he was throwing a huge temper tantrum. I quickly read through my notebook. Ah, I see. Enoshima Junko started to spread rumors immediately following the incident. But didn't you say she was interrogated? But if she was released just after that, then that means she can't be the culprit.
Thanks to your awful conversation timing, I've come to a conclusion, big sis. Well, it's just as you put it. It seems like the interrogation was highly relentless. I was thinking it would have been impossible for her to escape.
Kamishiro-kun suddenly stopped moving. What's wrong?
I see. That's it!
The boy's eyes widened. The corners of his mouth shook and trembled.
I understand now, big sis!
He shrieked excitedly.
We completely overlooked the most important part of it all. It really was best to ask you to help me out, big sis. You did great with the interactive mystery part.
With uncontrollable excitement, he enthusiastically took another sweetbread out of his paper bag. As he bit into it, he started to craft a new sentence. By the way, it was a jam bun.
What I'm saying is, Junko Enoshima was interrogated by the school. That's where the last piece was hidden.
What do you mean?
Well, you see, the information I heard while eavesdropping. The interrogation of Junko Enoshima was definitely incredibly thorough. There were things like polygraph testing and kinesics analysis. They started with cliché things like that. There's something called brain fingerprinting, which is slightly different to interrogating. But the thing with brain fingerprinting, it seems to be noticed as being a more reliable lie detector compared to the polygraph test. The point is, they were using tests that measured brainwaves directly to see if she was lying. Understand?
Not really, but it sounds incredible.
That's right! It is incredible!
The corners of Kamishiro-kun's mouth twitched up into a smile.
Not just that, but none of it would have been possible without an expert.
An expert?
For the interrogation, it seemed the school requested a certain student to assist them. Of course, I couldn't find out who this student was, but I finally realized it'd be difficult to utilize something such as brain fingerprinting without an expert in the field. They needed to collaborate with someone. If they knew, they'd have no reason to imagine it. I'm saying there's someone at this school who's familiar with the intricacies of the brain.
At that exact moment, an awful thought came wandering into my head. I didn't want it to come true, so I quickly tried to think of something else to distract me. It has nothing
You know him, big sis. He's the ultimate neurologist, Yasuke Matsuda.
I heard something that sounded a short fuse behind my ear. My brain was drawing a blank.
With the death notice from earlier, I thought there was no mistaking there was a connection between Junko and Matsuda, but perhaps Matsuda knew Junko's weakness. Anyway, there must be a reason behind the connection, right? The school released Junko and Ishima from the interrogation way too easily.
He continued to talk on, with his eyes shining brightly. I found myself nodding in agreement to everything he said. After he had spoken for approximately an age and a day, I couldn't help but feel as though I had no energy remaining. Even so, Kamishiro-kun continued to talk. In contrast to his happy, talkative nature, I was looking depressed at best.
The point being, I can't help but feel as though Yasuke Matsuda may have been the hidden last piece, you know? I mean, do you think Junko and Ishima's just been obsessively aiming at the good relationship between Matsuda and yourself? Hey, if it really is how I think it is, don't you think that's the connection?
I'm not really thinking anything. I don't know anything. I don't even know how this conversation turned to Matsuda-kun in the first place. I don't know. I don't know about these overwhelming reasons. It's impossible that everything has a reason behind it. I stopped writing in my notebook because my self-defense is working. If something came and threatened my world, I'd be happier if I just forget about it. Because if I forget about it, that means I have nothing to do with it. And it protects my world. So I'll look away from life's inconveniences and misfortunes. I'll chase after my world with all the strength I carry. I've cast away my feelings of self-hatred and guilt. Because I'll always forget, whether or not I turn away from the truth. And so, I have nothing to do with the things I forget. That's my self-defense.
Yeah, I really do feel like we'll solve this soon.
I suddenly realized, as Kamishiro-kun continued to talk to himself, he was drawing nonsense shapes on top of the table.
Say, a big sis, it seems like the end to your issue's coming soon too. After I solve it, it'll be time for you to get ready to reward me. Polish that fine-ass body. I like to imagine that despite your cute face, at night you're really the Aberembo Shogun, aren't you? Is that it? I bet you are.
After he finished his one-sided conversation, he got up from the chair, though it looked more like he was jumping up and down on it.
Alright, we're on the home run now.
After yelling out an encouraging shout, he turned around.
I'm sure next time we meet, big sis, I'll have solved the case.
As he waved his hand, Kamishiro-kun departed from the table. However, after only walking a few steps, he stopped.
Oh, right.
He looked back, with an expression that told me he had remembered something.
If you don't want to be sitting around doing nothing, you could look into Yasuke Matsuda's small problem. Well, it doesn't matter how much you look into it, he won't be killed or anything, but I thought it'd be good to mention it just in case. Still, I don't know what sort of secret connection Yasuke and Junko have, but it's better to be careful.
Secret connection? Inoshima-san and Matsuda-kun have a secret connection? What the heck? I was attacked by a wave of anxiety. My chest tightened in pain. I felt scared of everything. I was just exhausted.
Anyway, it's about time we reach the climax. You should get ready, big sis. Anything can happen.
Kamishiro-kun finished his warning and turned away. This time, he disappeared into the school's cafeteria's crowd like a ghost. Thus, I was left alone in the school cafeteria. I was still feeling exhausted. For the time being, I decided to just concentrate on taking several deep breaths. There was no reason for it. I was simply stalling time. The time to solve the mystery. Time always relentlessly continued in a steady stream. That's why I spent this time taking in deep breaths. And I forget. I forget everything perfectly. Very soon, I couldn't remember why I was taking in such deep breaths. How strange. Well, whatever. There was no more that I could forget. From that point on, I was bright, cheerful, and brimming with positivity. Without so much as a backward glance, I walked to the future, filled with hope. I picked up my notebook from the surface of the table, and with plenty of momentum, I stood from my chair and... Huh? I felt lightheaded, or maybe a little different to that. I suddenly grabbed the table with my hand. I looked to where I was looking previously. The words in my notebook danced around the page, distorting themselves. At that moment, I shivered and felt like a horde of insects was crawling up my back. My knees buckled. I thought briefly about what was happening and soon found I was sitting on a chair again. The inside of my head was strained with a metallic gray. My mind was completely blank. I'm tired. My eyelids became heavy and my face slackened. The world circling me was quickly disappearing. The busy, noisy students around me were vanishing. The human shapes surrounding me were all melting together. It was as if I had been poisoned or hypnotized. I couldn't move a single finger. It was in that complete stillness that I suddenly heard a voice.
Oh, poo-poo.
What an ominous laugh. It was strange, yet sounded so familiar.
What's this? Did you actually remember me? I'm happy. Despite your awful habit of forgetting things, you still remembered me. That's right. It's ultimate despair. It's been a while.
Why can I remember? Why did I remember them? Even so, I remembered someone. Before, this voice told me something. Let's meet up again. Then I'll kill you properly. Suddenly, I was looking upwards. Before my eyes was a giant shadow standing over me. The shadow had a familiar face, but I couldn't recall any memory of the face. That familiar face stared intensely at me, like it was trying to look past my skin. Their irises were colored by darkness itself. It was like their eyes were despairing, even in despair. As I looked into these eyes, an unexpected thought popped into my head. So I'll be killed by these eyes.
Unfortunately, I can't actually kill you this time either.
They whispered to me, like they were answering my thoughts.
Once again, I can't kill you due to circumstances. Since you still haven't tasted enough despair, you need to taste even more despair-inducing despair, you see.
Suddenly, all the lights surrounding me disappeared. At the same time, I noticed my eyelids were shut. The shadows seemed to cover my face completely.
But if you say you don't want to taste that despair, then it means war. If you don't fight despair, you'll never feel hope again.
Those were the last words I heard. After that, voices, sounds, everything had disappeared. As numbness took hold of my body, all my senses stopped working. I was completely still. I fell out of consciousness. I fell out of it silently.
Stop, 'cause you can't